Okay, guys, you wanted a note guide? Here we go. Macromolecules. This goes really nicely with our lesson on macromolecules. So, you should have picked this up in class. The macromolecule note guide right here. And these all go along perfectly with the slideshow that I will be going over right now. Okay, so macromolecules. Many of the organic compounds in living cells are macromolecules, which simply means giant molecules. Sometimes we call them biomolecules because they are made from living organisms, and they are thousands or even hundreds of thousands of very small molecules. They are made of the smaller units called monomers, and these monomers form together to make polymers. And that is illustrated here as in these little puzzle pieces. The monomers can be the same or they can be different. To build a polymer, it takes dehydration synthesis, and we saw this in the macromolecule paper. You were supposed to circle the OH and the hydrogen group from a different molecule, and those get together, and the water comes off, and the two molecules join. This takes energy. So when we were doing this with what the lions digested, and we were building the bonds, it took energy to build the new bonds. So that is what we were doing there. It was a dehydration synthesis. The opposite is hydrolysis. It takes water to break it apart. So the water is used up. You see the water here going into the reaction, and this produces energy. And so this is what we did on the front side of the lion digestion piece when we were cutting apart the proteins, and we said that it was creating energy. That's hydrolysis. We just didn't talk about adding the water at that point. Okay, so the types of macromolecules, so they group them based on their chemical composition, and we have alluded to these macromolecules many times by now. We have the carbohydrates, the lipids, the nucleic acids, and the proteins. First off, the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, usually in the ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. That's 1 carbon to 2 hydrogen to 1 oxygen. So most living things use carbohydrates as their main source of energy. These are sugars such as glucose can be broken down immediately and quickly for your cell's general activities. Plants and some animals also use carbohydrates for some structural purposes, which we will get to in a minute. A single sugar molecule is called a monosaccharide, mono meaning one. The most important monosaccharide is glucose, which is made during photosynthesis and is used in the cellular respiration to make energy. Besides glucose, monosaccharides also include galactose, which is a component of your milk, and fructose, which is found in many fruits. Ordinary table sugar is sucrose, and that is a disaccharide. It is a compound made by joining glucose and fructose together. Complex carbohydrates. Large molecules formed by monosaccharides are called polysaccharides. Poly meaning many. Plants use a polysaccharide that we call starch to store excess sugar. They also use another important polysaccharide, which we have talked about, cellulose. This gives plants much of their strength and rigidity. So, like what they show here, the celery, when you break the celery, you can hear the cellulose that you are breaking. Lipids. Lipids are a large group of biomolecules made mostly of carbon and hydrogen, and in general are not soluble in water. You know lipids as fats, oils, and waxes. They are long term energy use in biological speaking. We also like to use them to waterproof things, and they are also part of our cell membranes. They are also used as hormones in our body, steroids as well, and they hormones and steroids are chemical messengers. They travel through your body and tell your body to do different things. Lipids are formed when a glycerol molecule combines with compounds called fatty acids. We call the monomers of lipids fatty acids. Proteins, here's another macromolecule we talk about a lot. They contain nitrogen along with carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins are the polymers of proteins are molecules called amino acids. Proteins perform many different functions, such as controlling the rate of reactions, transporting substances into and out of cells. They're part of your immune system. They help you fight diseases. And of course, they are part of your muscles. The bonds in proteins are peptide bonds, and these link the amino acids together to form a polypeptide. A protein is a functional molecule built from one or more polypeptide. And in your notes, you probably needed this first. You have an R group down here where the R stands for some other group. Like here, it was a CH3 group, and here it's a CH2 attached to the OH group. And you have the carboxyl group. And the third part of your amino acids is always the nitrogen. Nucleic acids are used to store and transmit hereditary or genetic information. Nucleic acids are macromolecules which contain hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus. Nucleic acids are polymers, and they are assembled from the monomers called nucleotides. Nucleotides have three parts: the 5-carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base. There are two kinds of nucleic acids: ribonucleic acid, which is RNA, and deoxyribonucleic acid, which is DNA. The difference is the type of sugar. So the sugar ribose and the sugar deoxyribose is the main difference between RNA and DNA. And that is the end of our macromolecules. The extra questions that are in your notes are great review and possible questions that will show up in different places. So look at those, answer them if you wish. And that is all I have. So I will talk to you soon.